Welcome, everybody. First and foremost, welcome to the 2018 MIT 100K Finals.
We have an incredible event tonight with keynote speaker Steve Conine and our 8 finalists competing for a chance to win $100,000.
Woo!
So before we begin, however, we'd like to introduce the organizing committee and say a few words.
Hi, I'm Stephanie from Massachusetts.
Hi, I'm Patty, and I'm from Spain.
I'm Adele from Norway.
I'm Hish, and I'm from Malaysia.
I'm Alicia from France.
I'm Chandrika from India.
And to me, the 100K is people who are going to change the world.
Helping some of the most talented and ambitious people in the world realize their dreams.
A platform through which entrepreneurs get amazing amounts of exposure.
A great way to accelerate and foster MIT creativity.
Opportunity for students across MIT to start their entrepreneurial journey.
For 29 years, the 100K has been one of the pillars of the MIT ecosystem.
As an entirely student-run organization, we've helped top MIT founders move to the next step of their journey, and not just the winners.
This year alone, we'll be giving away more than $250,000 in cash, over half of which goes to teams that don't win grand prizes.
Each year, the best minds MIT has to offer compete to win, and this year was no different.
We had hundreds of competitors amongst our teams, representing countries across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas.
The companies themselves span industries from biotech and medical devices to advanced materials and machinery.
They're leveraging new research, technologies, and business models to solve consumers, businesses, and the world's greatest problems.
And tonight, we are so excited to bring you our 8 finalists.
Before we get to the competition, however, we want to thank all those without whom the 100K could never happen.
To our judges and mentors in every round, thank you so much.
These founders, tech executives, lawyers, consultants, scientists, and doctors volunteered more than 1,300 hours of their time to ensure that the competition was a valuable and enriching experience for all.
Finally, we want to thank our sponsors.
In addition to the funding to make this all happen, our sponsors not only open their doors to the teams, but also our organizing committee.
They offer guidance, new ideas, and ways to constantly make the competition better.
They're really our partners more than anything else.
And so to our gold sponsors, Morgan Lewis,
Wilmer Hale,
Wolf Greenfield,
Prudential,
Goodwin, and Booz Allen Hamilton.
as well as our silver sponsors, Sidon, MacArthur English, and Akamai.
Thank you for all that you do for 100K and making it a success.
And now to our competitors, good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
And to everyone else,
Enjoy the show.
Please join us once again, giving our sponsor, judges, and mentors a huge round of applause.
And so we're going to get right into it, and I'd like to introduce our MC for the evening, Mark Shalifu. Mark is a former MD of the 100K and now works at TD Bank, helping out with their innovation and technology endeavors. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Sandy. My name is Mark Shalifu. It's a pleasure to be your host this evening. Serving as managing director of the 100K was really the highlight of my time at MIT. And it's a real privilege as an alumni to be back on campus tonight, to be with you, to celebrate the best of student entrepreneurship. When the competition started 29 years ago by 3 students, it was called the MIT 10K because $10,000 was all that we could afford to give away. Through the magic of inflation and generous sponsors, as you just heard, it's grown into the MIT 100K with 3 competitions spread out through the academic year. It starts with Pitch, which is a 90-second elevator pitch competition in the fall. Then it followed by Accelerate, which is a prototyping competition that takes place in the winter. And it all wraps up tonight with Launch, where we have 8 teams vying for a $100,000 Robert P. Goldberg Grand Prize. Now, we hold the 100K finale in the last week of classes because the ideas and the businesses you're seeing tonight are the result of a year, often many years of hard work. Let me tell you what it took for these 8 teams to make it on this stage. First, we received more than 150 applications from students in every department of MIT. A team of judges chose 34 semifinalist teams. Each of those teams was given $1,000 and matched with business, legal, and design mentors to help them perfect their pitches and fine-tune their business plans. A week ago, those 34 teams pitched behind closed doors to panels of judges. The group was then narrowed down to 8 finalists, who each will receive $10,000 to put towards their idea. And tonight, those 8 finalist teams will pitch in front of us for the chance to turn $10,000 into $100,000. Each team will have 5 minutes to pitch, followed by 2 minutes of Q&A with our esteemed judges, who I'd like to take a moment to introduce to you. LD Samuelson has extensive experience in founding, advising, and investing in leading private technology companies. Prior to founding Cherry, he served as executive director of Oppenheimer's Private Shares Group after they acquired Greencrest Capital, a firm he co-founded. LD holds an MBA in finance from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, but we don't hold it against him. Welcome. Sarah Hodges is a partner at Pillar, an early-stage venture capital firm co-founded by 17 of Boston's leading CEOs. Prior to Pillar, Sarah served on the management team at Pluralsight, the world's largest online training platform for dev and creative professionals. She also founded Intelligently, a leadership development company that has shaped thousands of emerging leaders in local startups. Our third judge is Steve Fredette, president and co-founder of Toast, a restaurant technology company. Prior to Toast, he worked at Endeca, now Oracle, and co-founded their mobile commerce business and helped build their business intelligence unit. Steve holds a BS degree in chemistry from MIT. And our fourth judge is Natalia Bailey. She's CEO and co-founder of Axion Systems, a company providing in-space propulsion for satellites and spacecrafts. Natalia completed her doctorate in space propulsion at MIT, where she helped invent the first working prototype of an ion engine technology for small satellites, which would become the first product at Axion. Natalia was a New England Entrepreneur of the Year finalist in 2017, named to Inc. magazine's 30 Under 30 in 2017, named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list in 2016, and she was a National Science Foundation Fellow throughout graduate school. So, impressive judges. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, I don't want you thinking the judges have to do all the work. You're not just here to listen tonight. You have to work as well. So after the last pitch, we're going to be sharing a link to an online poll so you can vote for the $10,000 Audience Choice Award. So make notes of your favorite teams. And then finally, we should always know where we're going. So I'll tell you a bit about what we've got planned for tonight in terms of the run of show. So we'll hear from 4 of our 8 teams. And then we'll hear from our keynote, Steve Conine of Wayfair, and then 4 more pitches. When the last team wraps up, the judges will be sent off to deliberate and pick a winner. And during this time, we'll have a Q&A with Steve. We'll be posting a link so you can submit your questions for our keynote speaker. Now, without further ado, it's time to start the pitches. I'd like to invite up for 5 minutes, Strand Therapeutics.
At Strand Therapeutics, we believe that cancer is a problem that we can finally solve. 4 out of 10 people will develop cancer in their life. However, unlike any other time in history, we finally have real hope. Cancer immunotherapy is the single largest revolution in the treatment of cancer in human history. The drug shown here, known as anti-PD-1 immunotherapy, teaches the immune system how to recognize and destroy cancer cells. And although this therapy is being hailed as the first real cure by leaders in oncology, rather than just remission, it is not without its faults. In fact, immunotherapy is most effective in melanoma, in which it only is able to access 40% of patients. Even worse, if we look at breast cancer, less than 10% of breast cancer tumors can be treated by this immunotherapy. At Strand Therapeutics, we like to think, how do we access other types of tumors so that everyone has a chance to respond to immunotherapy? Gene therapy is one of the best solutions for this, and it is finally entering the spotlight. Companies like Kite and Spark pioneered the use of therapies that added DNA to cells, which allowed the cells to produce their own therapies at that site. In fact, last year, we had a groundbreaking year with the FDA approving the first 3 gene therapies, with more to come this and next year. However, this isn't the end. Now gene therapy is moving. It is merging with the field of synthetic biology, a way that allows us to create smart therapies, such as therapies that can determine what type of tissue they are located inside of and decide how much therapy to express. In addition, there's an even newer field called RNA therapeutics. This new platform allows for an easier and safer way to deliver gene therapies to the body. Strand Therapeutics harnesses the intersection of these 3 key innovation drivers to create unprecedented therapies. Gene therapy over the last few years has been moving in 2 seemingly unrelated directions. Early companies like Kite and Spark, while revolutionary in their time, suffered from the inability to control how the genes were expressed in the human body. Synthetic biology's programmable smart therapies, such as Cell Design Labs and CentiBio's programs, have sought to fix that issue on the first generation of therapeutics. The next generation of therapeutics is easier to deliver and safer. Companies like Moderna and BioNTech have moved into RNA therapeutics. The only company that exists at the intersection of these 2 emerging fields is Strand Therapeutics. With intellectual property that I developed in my time at MIT along with my co-founders, we're the only company in the world able to harness the true innovations of both of these emerging platforms. If you think of your immune system as a car that needs to find where cancer is, and you think of anti-PD-1, the leading drug, as taking the brakes off of that car, Strand Therapeutics provides the directions. In order to demonstrate this, we show data here presenting our drug along with the new anti-PD-1 standard of care. You see, when we add anti-PD-1 just to the mice, they survive for a median of 25 days. When we add our effector, we get 40-day survival. This is pretty good, but when we combine both of them together, the brake release and the directions, what we see is an amazing effect where over 80% of the mice survive out the end of the experiment and demonstrate curative immunity indefinitely. This brings us to Strand Therapeutics' first success: happy, long-lived mice. So far, we're moving forward, engaging with new scientists in order to expand our synthetic biology platform, along with talking with our biologic manufacturers and FDA regulatory consultants. This has led to our new plan of how we will enter clinical trials with our first therapy by 2020. This first drug will address a rather large market, 100,000 people in the US alone. But using our platform, we can access tumors that no other company can get to. Synthetic biology and smart therapeutics will allow us to expand into other types of tumors and get all the way up to 300,000 patients per year in the US. Right now, we're currently fundraising and also hoping to use the funds from this competition in order to support both of myself and my co-founder to go full-time into this company to truly develop how we will build out our platform. And with that, I'd like to introduce the most amazing team that I do get to work with, my co-founder, Tasuku Katada, a current biotech investment analyst, and personally, the greatest scientist that I've ever worked with. Additionally, another great scientist, my PhD advisor, Professor Ron Weiss, one of the world leaders in synthetic biology, as well as Daryl Irvine, a world leader in immunology and a foremost authority on gene delivery. We are Strand Therapeutics. We want to give every patient a fair chance to live. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? There we go. So I assume building relationships with pharma companies and getting access to their data is an important part of your strategy, and you're competing with a number of other companies in the synbio space. How are you uniquely positioned to get your foot in the door and build those relationships?
That's a fantastic question. Would you like to take that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we bring up this one?
Yeah. Oh, we don't have an appendix. Go.
Yeah. So that's a really great question. Is the mic on? So at Strands Therapeutics, as Jake mentioned, we're developing RNA-based therapeutics, and we're the only company in the world that can regulate the expression of therapeutics from this RNA platform. And so we have a unique modality, and on top of that, we are the only company that's able to regulate expression in a unique manner. And those unique aspects of our company and our platform will attract partnering opportunities.
To get to phase 1 or human trials, what's the killer experiment you need to perform?
Well, to get all the way to phase 1, what we're going to have to do is demonstrate some great, some more animal proof of concept data, but that really doesn't get us into phase 1. What gets us into phase 1 will be all the IND work, and that goes to the engagements we've already had with the FDA regulatory consultants, and our work with the FDA to figure out what is it that we need to demonstrate that will convince the FDA that this is safe to go into different sorts of patient populations. In terms of that, I don't know if there's necessarily one amazing experiment based, except for these mice that we were able to cure.
Do you feel that you have all the folks on the team necessary to get you to that point?
Absolutely not. Actually, right now, we are recruiting an executive chairman, someone who has been through the biologics development platform, and that can actually come onto our team and help guide us, as we are two young founders that have not been in the biopharma industry. So that sort of mentorship will be very key to actually navigating the clinical development pipeline. That being said, we also have a number of other people we need to bring on, such as a real lead scientist that can help take our platform further. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have STEM Gem.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eva, and I'm a co-founder of STEM Gem. And our mission is to engage teenage girls in STEM: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We have a huge problem. By the time they reach high school age, only 18% of girls are still interested in a career in STEM. And this compares to 45% of boys. Now, why does this happen? Our research has shown that teenage girls want to make a difference in people's life. They want to have a direct social impact. And they cannot really see how to do that with STEM, as it is often too abstract, and they don't see the immediate translation of STEM into that social impact that they desire. We have come up with a product that shows teenage girls how to build technology that is truly meaningful to them and that enables and empowers them to actually make that change. STEM Gem is a device toolkit that lets you build your own wearable device and app, just like the one that I'm currently wearing around my wrist. As you can see, STEM Gem comes with a gadget itself with different sensors that you can plug into the device, as well as different bracelets and also designs. Essentially, STEM Gem is an Internet of Things rapid prototyping toolkit that enables students to build their own real technology. STEM Gem is very intuitive to use. First, you take a sensor. Currently, we offer motion sensor, temperature sensor, and also pulse sensor, and you plug it into the device. You then connect to our online programming environment, which is our proprietary platform where you can learn how to build apps, how to use different functionalities, and even how to code in order to create your own device. And just after a few hours, you will be able to create your own real technology. And girls have created all kinds of things in the past. Anna, for example, wanted to create a device that is similar to a Fitbit device that you can use with her lacrosse team and her friends. And Lisa, for example, built her own menstrual cycle predictor. It really depends on the girl and what is meaningful to her. What we really want to deliver is the joy of making a real impactful product. And in fact, we also have an online community where girls can share their ideas and share their projects with one another. And we have also developed lesson plans for teachers. STEMGEM has been tested with over 200 teen girls, thanks to our partners. Teen girls have been part of our product development process, of our design process, and will continue being a fundamental part in our product iteration going forward. Our team is excited to take STEMGEM to the next level. My co-founder Larissa spent the last few years researching the pedagogy and also design of STEMGEM as part of her PhD thesis. Scott is an expert in cloud computing and IoT and has been paramount in the development of the product and technology. I have previously worked in education technology and business development, and we're excited and ready to go to the next level. In fact, Larissa and I turned away from STEM ourselves when we were teenage girls, and we don't want this to happen to future generations. We plan to go to market primarily through teenagers and their parents. Teenage girls in the US have an electronics budget of $3 billion, and we plan to capture a chunk of that market. We will have our Kickstarter campaign coming up this summer, and then plan to retail via Amazon, as well as leading retail stores. Longer term, we're also targeting schools and education foundations. STEM is a very, very hot topic, both here in the United States and also everywhere around the world. And governments have invested billions of dollars in order to solve this problem. In fact, in the US alone, 60,000 schools are currently redesigning their science curricula as part of the next generation science standards in order to make them more hands-on, and they're looking for providers. But what really gets us excited about STEMGEM is the confidence increase that it instills in teenage girls. According to our research, teenage girls' confidence in their ability to create hardware increases up to 45% after using STEMGEM. And their confidence to build an impactful product increases up to 33%. And it is this confidence increase that is so fundamental in the mindset change at such a young age. In order to inspire the inventors of tomorrow, we need to empower the inventors of today. Thank you very much.
So what makes an array of sensors a male versus female product?
It depends really what is meaningful to yourself. So the sensor itself can be used both by girls and boys in whatever functionality they want to use it. However, girls tend to use it for something that they personally find very meaningful to themselves. For example, for a specific sport that they play, or for example, for a health-related issue. So the sensors, again, can be used by anyone, but it really depends on the creator behind the product that makes it fully personal.
I think the community is just as interesting, if not more interesting, than the IoT product itself. So I'm curious to hear how you're thinking about building out that community.
Absolutely. So we already have a community online where girls have started sharing their ideas, projects, and even their code in order to inspire one another. More long-term, we plan to roll out this online community platform both in the B2C segment and also in the B2B segment, directly working with schools as well as education foundations. We're also leveraging social media, which is something quite important at that age in our target group, to make sure that they are continuously engaged and find STEM not only useful, but also cool.
I think it's clear you're addressing an underserved market, but after you go to market and the first mover advantage has come and gone, how do you protect your position?
Absolutely. So we have patents pending on our product, specifically the functionality between the software element and also the hardware element. We also have years of MIT research that is behind us. I think what will be fundamental in protecting that position going forward is our partnerships, which we're actively looking for. We plan to partner with the leading education foundations, schools, and also private sector companies in order to build a robust business model going forward.
As far as comparable businesses, like who do you look at or aspire to be like the Lego Mindstorms. I guess we ran out of time.
Answer.
Okay. Great question,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Our next and third team is Crystal Sonic.
Thank you very much. Hello, and thank you for having us here today. My name is Noel, and I'm the CEO of Crystal Sonics. And me and my team are driving the cost out of performance wafers to enable next-generation technology. Silicon wafers are the foundation of modern electronics. All of the great devices we have in life, your mobile phones, your laptops, your displays. These are awesome technologies, but the new applications coming online are pushing silicon to its very edge. And it's holding back. Silicon wafers are holding back technical revolutions in multiple industries today. New materials would revolutionize all kinds of industries. In power electronics alone, silicon carbide wafers can reduce the size and weight of batteries by 85%. Think about that. Think what that will do to EV transportation. And the results are no less dramatic in optoelectronics, renewable energy, and telecommunications. Reducing wafer costs will enable this revolution to happen. Look where silicon wafers are today. They're very low. That's the problem. Gallium arsenide, silicon carbide, gallium nitride are expensive and only have limited penetration so far. Reducing them will increase adoption. But where the massive opportunities do lie too are in the materials you can't use today because they're way too expensive, like diamond wafers at $50,000. Imagine if you could bring that closer to silicon. We would discover all kinds of new things we could do with it because the research labs could use it. So then the big question really becomes, why are wafers so expensive? One reason is because we're using 1950s technology that was developed for cheap, abundant silicon, and now we're trying to apply it to very expensive materials. Take a wafer. Most of it is just inert mechanical support. We only use the very top layer. Imagine what would happen if we built 30-story skyscrapers and only used the top floor. There's more. When you saw wafers, you lose half of the material in sawdust. Completely wasteful. And then you have to polish off all the saw marks just to use the wafers. That's expensive, and it introduces more defects. There's got to be a better way. And the industry has been working on a better way for 20 years. It's called epitaxial liftoff. It's incredibly complicated, and it uses lots of chemicals. So it's expensive, it's environmentally unfriendly, and it introduces defects to the devices. Our solution is 95% cheaper, it's green, and it produces better wafers. We call it sonic cutting. It's a patented process by which we harness the power of sound to perfectly cleave a material along its atomic plane, creating atomically smooth surfaces. We have perfect thickness control, we waste no material, we have perfectly flat surfaces that require no polishing, and best of all, we use very little material. The market for our product will double in the next 5 years to $10 billion. And we're using this huge market growth to jump right into the market with something we can build today, thin wafers. They're drop-in replacements. We've identified our first customers. We'll move on to engineered wafers, cutting thinner sheets of thin film and bonding them onto cheap substrates and selling engineered wafers. And then beyond that, we'll move to device-bonded wafers, where we'll take a pre-printed device on a wafer, lift it off, bond it on a cheap substrate, and sell devices and also wafers. This is the supply chain bulk wafer device chip. We'll take bulk in the beginning, sell into the wafer market. Later on, we'll take devices and we'll sell into the bonded device market and sell into the wafer market. But our customers are device manufacturers. This will revolutionize the industry. 50%, 50x better flat disk, that's quality. We can make them for 90% less cost and with 2% of the material. Think of the market penetration we will achieve. We understand how hard it is to scale a company, and we've studied it from the manufacturing, sales and operations, and R&D perspective, and you'll see pictures of all the people who have to do all the key challenges to scale up for the 5 years. Our green team is our science team. The inventors of the process are on this team. The blue team is our business team. We've scaled companies and run them properly before. Our engineering team has experience scaling these kind of processes and building the process equipment necessary to do it. And our sales team has 10 years of experience selling these kinds of products to the customers we want to sell to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If the bonded device and liftoff market is sort of the long-term goal, why not raise more money and go straight for that segment?
Well, we could, and that might be the way this goes. But one of the challenges we've always seen with these kind of startups is they can be somewhat capital intensive, and it can be harder to get them off the ground. So we're giving our investors an option. We figure that with $7.5 million, we can launch this as planned and use the markets to help scale up. If someone came in with $50 million, yes, we'll skip that thin wafering step for sure.
You could be the next Desktop Metal, which would be kind of fun, actually. How much of the products, so if you save 10 or 20% of the cost, right, you reduce down to 5%, is that the final end product for the majority of the market, or is that bundled into something else such that you save 95%, but that's only 5% of the overall component cost, right? And so it really only causes the overall cost to go down by a small fraction.
Can you repeat that again, sorry?
I don't know enough about this market to know whether the competitors of yours are all selling the exact same thing, or whether they're bundling it in with something else, right? Such that your reduction in cost is not reducing the end product cost by the 95% that you're reducing the component cost.
Yeah, I understand, I think. Our competitors are not selling the same thing because we have a patented product. It cannot be replicated legally. But our materials advantage is massive. There's no one else being able to do it like that. The alternative processes where you do use less material need tremendous amounts of polishing and recovery, and it just doesn't work as well. Does that?
Let's say, for example, that the polishing companies are never selling the wafer directly. They're selling the wafer with 10 other components, and they have no other incentive. Therefore, you'd basically have to be selling to your competitors. I guess that would be the concern. I don't know if that's a problem.
We have an optionality here. We can sell to device manufacturers, or we can sell to the waferers. It depends whoever wants to invest and whoever wants to become our customer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, our fourth team is Infinite Cooling.
"4,000 children die every day because they don't have access to clean water, and the water crisis is only getting worse. One of the biggest users of water in the US is power plants, which account for 39% of withdrawals. Most of this water is used for cooling, especially in evaporative cooling towers, which are the most common system, and this costs $50 billion a year globally. Additionally, as vapor leaves these towers, it typically forms large plumes that can pose regulatory issues and prevent operation. Let's look at an example customer. The 600 megawatt power plant uses as much water as 100,000 people residentially, and this costs them $5 million a year.
We have the solution to this problem. Here at MIT, we've developed the patent-pending technology that can harvest large volumes of water from cooling tower plumes, so the same water can be reused again and again for cooling. Our device uses electric fields to charge the escaping water droplets and then create an electric field to attract those water droplets towards a collection mesh placed on the cooling tower outlet. And because our device is able to collect this pure recondensed water, not only do we reduce the evaporative losses, but also costly water treatment requirements. And now we've also built a prototype of our product. As you can see, with the device off, the plume can pass through it unaffected. However, when we switch our device on, the plume vanishes almost instantaneously, and the water begins to collect. We've optimized the geometry and the surface chemistry of this collector such that we can now collect 80% of the liquid water droplets in the air. In 2017, we started our first industrial scale pilot at the MIT cogeneration plant, a 20 megawatt power plant located on campus. We've installed a water collection unit on one of their collectors, on one of their cooling towers. And our collector is essentially an array of these units. We've also completed the design and manufacturing of our first full-scale collector, which will be installed this summer. And so coming back to our 600 megawatt customer, we can save them 150 million gallons of water per year, offsetting $1 million in water sourcing and treatment costs. And because our device is a really low power consumption, only 15 kilowatts, it will only cost $10,000 a year to operate. We're also able to eliminate our customer's plume and do that without reducing the cycle cooling efficiency whatsoever.
In line with industry practices, we've chosen a pricing model of a $2 million upfront installation cost and $200,000 a year for O&M. That provides our customers with a 2-year payback period, which has been very well received by the customers we've talked to. Our product is cheaper than all of our competitors, and it's also the only one that can be retrofitted on existing cooling towers. Our market encompasses all thermoelectric power plants, which amount to $6 billion in the US, as well as all other processes that require heat dissipation, such as HVAC for large buildings, refineries, or chemical plants. Overall, the market is over $20 billion. We've talked to several customers and have received great feedback on this product. We are still in advanced discussions with several of these companies to have our first commercial installation by the end of the year. We've also talked to regulatory agencies to start establishing this product as a new standard for best water practices in power plants. We've been working on this technology for the past 4 years, and we have a patent pending in the US, Europe, Japan, and 7 other major countries. We've also got $200,000 in non-dilutive funding from grants and startup competitions that we won, including the MIT Clean Energy Prize and the DOE National Startup Competition. We're currently raising a seed round of $2.5 million to grow the team, pay for the remaining pilot expenses, and IP legal fees. In 2020, we'll raise a Series A of $10 million to rapidly grow and reach $80 million in revenue by year 2022. Beyond savings for power plants, we believe that we can have a profound impact on the global water crisis. Let's look at the case of Cape Town. The South African city is running out of water, and they are installing a desalination plant for their water needs. But if you look at the map, just 15 miles away from the city is a 2 gigawatt nuclear plant. And if that power plant had infinite cooling equipped cooling towers, it could provide 3 times more water at a 1/10 of the cost. More broadly, we believe that we can turn every coastal power plant into a low-cost desalination unit, saving $15 billion a year in electricity costs and saving lives. And we have the team that can make this happen. My name is Maher, I'm the CEO of Infinite Cooling, and this is Karim, our CTO, who just finished our PhDs at MIT. Our third co-founder is Professor Varanasi, who is also a serial entrepreneur in this field. And finally, our COO is Derek, who has an MBA from MIT and spent the last 5 years as the CFO of a power plant developer. We are Infinite Cooling, and our mission is to help solve the water crisis and save power plants $10 billion a year with a 2-year payback. Thank you.
Since your model, the financial model, is very compelling from a cash flow standpoint, have you considered other sources of financing instead of equity, such as venture debt or maybe customer financing, which may be less dilutive to the founding team?
We have considered additional financing sources. At the end of the day, what we want to be able to do is have the requisite funding to be able to implement our product. And we believe that we can do that with both venture funding or with venture debt. At the end of the day, we want the right partners that can provide more than just capital.
Can you talk about the customers outside your target beachhead? Do they exhibit the same characteristics, same payback period, same profit margin for you, and are you able to retrofit the technology as easily for them?
Sure. So these markets are very different. So some of them are very attractive because they use, they have cooling needs for process heat dissipation, which usually operates at higher temperatures, and they generate bigger plumes. So we will have a higher collection there. But we are starting with power plants because these are really the biggest water users from an industrial point of view. So these are where we can have the biggest impact and who have the biggest need for this technology. But we can have short paybacks on these other processes as well, especially refineries, chemical plants, and things like that.
How much do you see the regulatory side of this business impacting your overall market size? So there's obviously the financial impact that's pretty clear for the power plants with high water costs. But the plume abatement, right, is it a massive problem? Is it a small problem? You know, if Scott Pruitt decides tomorrow he's going to tell power plants they have to install this thing, right? I mean, or maybe countries that are in the Paris Accord, right? Just to be serious, right? I mean, how much does that regulatory bit impact this market size?
Yeah, so plumes are definitely an issue, and they are affected by local regulations more than national regulations. So these, it can be a problem for some power plants, but really the bigger impact here is water savings. And we've talked to regulatory agencies such as the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and the Department of Energy, and they really told us that if this is proven as a technology, it can really be the new standard for best water practices.
All right, that was the first half of our teams. Give them a round of applause. All right, before we move on with the rest of the finalists, I'd like to invite our keynote speaker to join us on stage and share some of his insights with the hopeful entrepreneurs who are in the audience. Our speaker is Steve Conine. He's the co-founder and co-chairman of Wayfair, the online leader in the massive home category. They generated $5.2 billion in net revenue in the 12 months ending on March 31st, 2018. Please join me in welcoming Steve.
There you go. Thank you. It is awesome to be here. I love coming and seeing the energy of all the entrepreneurs and people presenting their businesses. I actually was in the audience here back in the late 90s. I have been an entrepreneur who started 3 companies, and I was very honored to be asked to come and talk at this event. It was certainly inspired me when I was an entrepreneur getting started. So before coming over here, I tried to spend some time trying to figure out what this audience might find interesting. So I've tried to put myself back in the mindset of my 20-something-year-old self. And the thing that's interesting today is there are amazing resources for entrepreneurs in the world. The MIT 100K has existed probably longer than most business plan competitions, but there's so many great resources. I didn't want to just get up here and tell you guys about how to run engineering teams or how to hire people, because there's great resources for that. So I thought what I'd do is give you just kind of a background on myself as an entrepreneur in hopes that maybe it gives some of you comfort as you're going along the journey as an entrepreneur. My wife and daughter actually asked me, well, what specifically, what does that mean? And I was like, oh, well, I guess really what I'm talking about is, you got to enjoy what you do. Hard work matters. And I was like, there's some other stuff along the way, but it'll all come out. So they kind of looked at me skeptically. I said, okay, anyway. So anyway, I started, I grew up in New Jersey as a kid. My mother was one of 10 kids that she grew up on a family farm in upstate New York. And it's a 2,000-acre commercial vegetable farm. It's a big, kind of vegetable farm. My father was a 25-year veteran at Merrill Lynch. And so as a kid, it afforded me the opportunity of seeing some pretty dramatically different careers. So I spent summers working in both these environments. And the summer I worked at Merrill Lynch, I've gotten to know the fellow I worked for that summer. And he's later told me the story. He said, Steve, that summer you were working here, he's a senior exec at Merrill Lynch. He says, Steve, I came over and I asked you out to lunch one day. And you kind of looked up at me and said, geez, Mr. Giordano, I'd love to go out to lunch with you, but I'm just so busy, I don't think I can take the time off to do it. And to this day, he sort of ribs me about it. He's like, he's like, no intern ever says that to a senior exec. He's like, you definitely stood out as a guy who really liked to work hard and really cared about the stuff you're focused on in the moment. And I think a lot of that came from the time I'd spent farming as a kid. So conversely, when you work on a farm, you're working hard 14-hour days, hard physical labor, picking stuff up and setting it down and working with knives, and it's hazardous, and there's machinery flying by you, and you got to make sure you're not getting run over. And so you're very much in the moment. and you're very much worried about the task at hand. You're picking a product that can spoil, and you're very much focused on what do I have to do right now to keep moving forward. And that was a real influencer on me, but it also showed me that I could work very hard. And I looked at what I did at Merrill Lynch, and the week she'd sit at the desk, it didn't even seem like work to me versus working on this farm. It really seemed like work. And so when I got started as an entrepreneur, one of the things that drove me into the career was that I really, I liked working hard, and I wanted to disproportionately benefit from the fruits of my labor, which I imagine a lot of you think about as entrepreneurs as well. I came across this quote recently. I thought it spoke to me. So every Monday morning, Wayfair has now gotten to be, it's a 8,500 person roughly company. We have about 200 people here in Boston, so it's a big company. Every Monday morning, I get up and I talk in front of all our new hires. And it's a group of usually 50 to 100 people, so it's maybe like, this section right here. And at the end of it, people ask me questions. Recently, one of the new employees asked me, like, oh, Steve, when you were getting started, it must have seemed weird to you to look around at your peers, and they were kind of all ahead of you. I imagine a bunch of them would have been successful. Here you are in 2002, running this e-commerce company, struggling to kind of make it. And I said, geez, that's interesting. I'd never really thought about that. And the reality of it is I never really cared about the success of my peers. I never really compared myself to them. I always knew what made me happy, knew what I enjoyed doing. I think a lot of it stemmed back to kind of, seeing farming and seeing financial services. I could be happy doing a number of different things. And so, it was one of the characteristics that defined me. Okay, last early stage thing. I won't spend the next 10 minutes here giving you guys all my life story, but was my parents used to harass my parents a lot. I was kind of an idealist as a kid. My father worked in financial services. I'd harass him about how the margins of that industry are insane, and they shouldn't be getting away with the pay they get and all this stuff. And he would say, Steve, he's like, look. The thing about, making a stand in the world, he's like, people who have been successful have much more clout and can actually, do better. He's like, they used to throw at me like, well, if you think about, Bill Gates and Microsoft or, Sam Walton and, Walmart, you think about their influence versus if you're going to go put on a sandwich board and walk around the streets of Cambridge, who do you think is going to, I'm like, God damn it, they're right. And so that kind of motivated me. I remember getting out of school as a 21-year-old, and obviously money's not everything, but one of the ways you measure success is money. And I remember, if you'd asked me then, I probably would have said, well, I want to make $1 million by the time I'm 30. And so I was definitely financially driven. I sort of had that as one of my things I thought about. So this is Niraj Shah, he's been my co-founder for the 3 companies we've started, and myself, while we were in college. And one of the things that, when I look back on that time period in our life and getting started as entrepreneurs, we were very thoughtful about our standard of living. Your standard of living is something you very much control, and we were very cautious or thoughtful about not creating excessive pressure, financial pressure on ourselves by having kind of an inflated standard of living. And I'd seen nice, different standards of living as a kid growing up. But this was an apartment we lived in London one summer we were there. And it was this basement unit. It was moldy. It was a single room with these 2 beds in it, with a shared bathroom down the hall, kind of under the stairs. And the notable feature was you had to put coins in the electric meter to get the lights to come on. So, we didn't think of it as sacrifice at the time. We were having fun, and we really enjoyed doing it. And that was just kind of, what we were doing to live. But as an entrepreneur, not having that financial pressure has been huge. So Niraj and I have started these 3 companies together. And they've had varying degrees of success, which I'll take you quickly through here. This was the first team we ever started a business with. This was right out of Cornell. And it was a company called Spinners. It was a consulting company. We built internet websites, basically. And this founding team was Niraj, myself, Josh, who's a freshman at the time, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, so it's worked out fine. It went through some rough years in the middle. It's a good story anyway. And Tim on the end, who was a graduating senior. And of course, as graduating undergrads, we thought raising money was kind of how you validate a company. And so we thought you had to go raise money. So we sort of did an even equity split between these 5. And then we raised $20,000 from 2 people, my parents and a random friend of this guy, Josh, who we'd never met before. And we gave him about 20% of the company. And so we were all psyched. We were like, great, okay, we're going to get going. We get going. We go through the summer, and things are going really well. And at the end of the summer, my girlfriend and this kid, Josh, go back to class. This fellow, Tim, decides that it's not really for him. And so this leaves Niraj and I owning, 30% of this business, maybe 15% each, putting 100% of the labor. And it's a consulting business, so labor is everything. And so, at some point, that just eats on us. And it was a tough lesson to learn. We ended up having to buy everybody else out and kind of, go through all this legal work to kind of sort the thing out and get it back so that we were then truly bootstrapping. And at that point, we both became very big fans of bootstrapping and trying to get businesses we started as far as we could on our own skills. So this is our first office. It was over here on Cambridge Street, right across the Longfellow Bridge. And we'd go so far as to have employees build their own desk. We got to Home Depot and buy wood, and this is them painting their legs, which created a very nice culture as well. But we were very scrappy. Well, so we started Spinners in '95. You can see the NASDAQ chart here, right? We caught it at a very nice time. Spinners grew. It got to be about 40 people. We sold it to a larger company. Larger company went public. And so by 2000, I was probably a 26-year-old. And I think I had a bank statement that said I was worth like $28 million. And I was like, oh, I'm all set. This is great. And then over the next 6 months, I got to see that bank statement go back down to basically zero. Now, we had sold a little bit. So we both did walk away from that experience with a couple $1 million in the bank. And we were 27-year-old-ish. It wasn't enough money we could retire on, but it was enough to kind of like, okay, we don't have to go immediately get another job. Love being entrepreneurs. And so we started this company, Simplify Mobile. We thought we could help businesses save money on their mobile phone expenses. Turned out not to be a good idea. The beauty of that business was we'd never raised financing. And so it was very easy to wrap it up and get on to the next thing in our life. And you learn a lot from those failures. So Wayfair today is a very large company. It wasn't. It was actually interesting to hear somebody who was just up here, one of the presenters, sort of made this comment about, how much money do you raise, or how do you think about that? Well, the way we've thought about it is, start small. And the thing with engineering and innovation, we're very much a tech-minded company. We think we have about 1,800 software engineers that run Wayfair. Is that you can often see and describe big problems. Like I could have told you a decade ago that transportation for furniture is terrible. It's really hard to know how to fix that. And if you're going to just go and try to solve that macro problem, just starting at the starting point, you're probably not going to make the right decisions, and you're not going to make the right things. So if you start small, you can increment in. We knew there was a big opportunity, right? So 2/3 of GDP is consumer spending. If you hit it right, retail businesses can be just huge. If you were to raise money back in 2002 to start the world's largest home store, you would have had to have raised hundreds of millions of dollars. You would have ended up owning very little amount of it. And the odds that you actually would build the right thing would be extremely low. So we started very small. This is our revenue by week over the first few months. You can see, start with zero. By the end of the first year, we're doing about $80,000 a week. And so we're solving technical problems that come up 1 in every 10 orders, 1 in every 100 orders, right? They're things we see fairly frequently. We want to automate. Things that happen 1 in 10,000 orders, we don't even care about because you rarely see them. If they happen, you deal with them manually, take them out of the system. Fast forward, 16 years later, these $88,000 weeks become $100 million weeks. The growth in those early years looks like we really weren't doing anything. But we're now solving those problems out of the 1 in 10,000 order problems. And our ability to increment into that has been a lot of what I contribute our success to. Now, I've hit a lot of my financial goals. And it's been flattering to show up on some of these lists. It's really nice that they picked Neeraj's actually photo for some of these things instead of myself. It makes it a little easier when I'm talking to my kids about it, I think. We're Wayfair's largest shareholders. So by bootstrapping, we've been able to maintain ownership of the business. We control about 80+% of the vote in the business today. The very interesting thing, though, is that we've actually raised over $1 billion in funding over the years. And you can see we didn't do it until 2011. We were about a $500 million business when we raised our first round. And so we grew the business just purely out of cash flow, out of our own resourcefulness. We were pretty good jacks of all trades, and we kind of wouldn't be scared about trying things we'd never done before. And it's been an amazing win for us. And our investors, it's been an amazing win for them. If you asked any of our investors in our A round, we were generally the top performing investment they made, both from a cash return as well as on a percentage return basis. And so waiting later along where we had very good clarity on what we were going to use the money for has been a real win. So I encourage you as entrepreneurs, think about that. And so then, finally, you got to love what you do. This is me carving a large ice heart in Vermont, which I do with my family just for fun in the winter because it's cold up there. We've tried to build a very great culture. And I'd encourage you, part of going in and being an entrepreneur is you do get to pick your career, and you do get to pick and do what you love. And so that's been something that has been very important to Neeraj and I over the years. I tell our team often that you spend the majority of your waking hours with the people you work with. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you ought to be thoughtful about picking people you enjoy working with, and value the fact that you get to pick and drive a career that hopefully you love. So with that, I'm very excited to hear the remaining businesses for this after the rest of this.
Thanks, Steve. Yep. Thank you very much. All right, we will have Steve back on stage after our final 4 pitches for a Q&A. So start thinking up those questions. I said you weren't just here to listen, you were here to work. So get thinking of those great questions. Now, we're going to continue with the rest of the finalist pitches. Please join me in welcoming 360 Truck.
Thanks.
So, hi everyone. My name is Jutaba, and I'm a co-founder of 360 Truck. For trucking companies, full truck is always great, but when trucks start running back empty, that is painful. And it is even more painful in Southeast Asia, where truck is a key driver in logistics. The inland logistic value in Southeast Asia is worth $21 billion, and trucking is accounted for 82% of that. The market is dominated by medium to large carriers, and we are positioned to capture this market. So when head haul is usually full, 60% of the returning truck in Southeast Asia is empty. And the carriers bearing the cost of round trips, but making money from only one. This is the example of the carriers who has been suffering from this problem for decades, because the way she currently solves it is very inefficient. She has to jot down the schedule and manually match it with the shipment with her limited network. So the drivers have to wait 4 to 5 days betting for a luck to get the shipment back. And even if they can find the shipment back, she's facing an opportunity. She is facing their unreliable and unassured payment. So the carriers in Southeast Asia is losing the opportunity of $2.4 billion a year from running these empty trucks back, and shippers have to pay 30% higher freight cost to cover this unutilized backhaul. When compared to developed countries, the logistic cost in Southeast Asia is much higher, and that results in a high product price, making it less affordable to the people, especially the poor. That's why 360 Truck is aiming to solve this problem to keep the round trip fulfilled like a full 360-degree circle. Our solution is to create an empty backhaul-based online logistic marketplace to connect a large pool of truckers and efficiently match the empty trucks with the shippers. With our proprietary matching algorithm, let's see how it works. So while traditional methods can handle only exact location match of trucks and goods, our algorithm is designed exclusively for backhaul search and matching by including a pass-by, nearby, and detour trucks. This would increase the chance of matching by more than 100% compared to traditional methods. And with AI, we use the machine learning to improve the platform accuracy. For example, red areas in this heat map usually take a long time for loading, so the system can learn and prevent users from any unexpected delay. Last but not least, the predictive analytics provide a proactive job suggestion by sending push notification to potential users based on their historical data, such as type of trucks, goods, and routes. Not only the superior technologies that we have, we also apply a pre-qualification process and the standard pricing logic, because we know that reliability and consistency of the service is very important in this industry. So now let's see how the impact do we make.
Shippers, for the most part, don't own their own trucks. They're farmers, they're manufacturers, they're retailers, and even the most sophisticated of these can't predict the future. And so with no trucks and demand uncertainty, having reliable access to truckers is tough. So our solution is a win-win, with carriers seeing increases in revenue of 23% and shippers seeing freight costs reduced by 30%. What's more, we see that our solution is capable of helping over 1 million truck drivers in Southeast Asia, and also to reduce, effectively remove up to 500 million kilograms of carbon dioxide output of the empty trucks that we're getting off the road. So within 4.5 months of piloting, we've seen 90 customers acquired with over 5,000 trucks. And speaking conservatively, there's over 20,000 customers in Southeast Asia that can benefit from our help. Currently, we're partnering with one of the largest truck carriers and shippers in Thailand to lock in a critical mass of users. And how are we going to get there? Well, our CEO's got 8 years of experience in the logistics industry, along with strong ties to both carriers and shippers. And together with our co-CTOs, have the skills and experience of deploying artificial intelligence specifically for network design. Our board of advisors has extensive experience in scaling global startups. And so we're asking you to help us make an impact with 360 Truck to increase the general welfare of over 1 million truckers, to sustainably grow Southeast Asia, the Southeast Asian economy, and to decrease the carbon footprint of the trucking industry. So join us in solving this empty backhaul problem. Thank you.
So perhaps an unfair question for the two of you, but a really important part of investing in companies this early on is the people, and particularly the CEO. And I know your CEO is not yet full-time. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the plan for him to come on full-time into the company?
Yes. Oops, hello. Yes, sure. Currently, we are developing the platform to be fully utilized, and our CEO, we're going to join like full-time, joining the team once we are ready to like acquire the network of carriers, and we're like really into the business. We're now like in the process of develop all the like predictive analytics and everything, and within like 1 year, we would be able to launch the service, and at that time, our CEO will full-time joining our team.
If you were to win the prize money, what would you be able to do with that?
That's a really great question. Well, first of all, I would have to say that 100K, like US dollar, is something in the US, but in Southeast Asia, that money could really buy a house that fit 4 people. So that amount of money could do a lot. The first part of the money that we're going to use it to like develop as I said, to fully develop our technologies, like the engine behind. And another part would be used for sales and marketing team to acquire the largest pool of network from both carriers and shippers like as fast as possible, because like it is really important to increase the matching rate of the empty trucks if we can have a large pool of networks of the users.
So what's different about the model in the US versus the model in Asia, specifically in your market in Thailand, for example?
So our product is specifically geared to capture the inefficiencies of trucks that are empty on their way back from the head haul. And so in America, what you have for Uber Freight, for example, you have digital load boards, which are basically matching algorithms for matching suppliers or shippers and carriers. And they're standardized for a US market where there's, and they're basically focusing on transparency and pricing. We're focusing on empty backhaul.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Our next company is Zilper Trenchless.
Thank you. Here, right?
Yep, the green one.
Okay. Hi, I'm Daniel, Venezuelan, co-founder of Zilper Trenchless, a company that is reducing the cost of delivering water to people. Almost 1 billion people lack access to a clean water source. But at the same time, in developed countries like in the US, we're wasting 6 billion gallons of water daily due to leaks in our very old piping systems. That's enough water to cover the daily demand of Texas and California put together. It's about 18% of the water we consume in the US. And even though these two issues don't seem very related, they share a common cause. And it's the high cost of underground installations. Even though laying a pipe underground might seem like a very straightforward process, where you dig a trench, you put a pipe in, you close back the trench, and then you restore the area that was excavated, In reality, it involves many engineering, legal, and environmental challenges that make this process very time-consuming, costly, and disruptive for contractors, cities, and governments. It's so costly that the US alone will need to invest $1 trillion in the coming years just to upgrade the current oil infrastructure, water infrastructure, to acceptable levels. And that has led to a big market opportunity of technologies that are trying to address this issue. Transys Technologies got here to the market to reduce the cost of underground piping infrastructure by reducing the amount of excavation needed to put a pipe underground. You don't need to dig a whole trench. It's a growing market. It's expected to reach $35 billion by 2021. It's a 7.9% CAGR growth over the next few years. However, still, in about 70% of the cases, the investment required to purchase one of these machines is not justified by the savings they generate for a single project. So contractors are not very incentivized to use these technologies. So why is that? Well, two main problems. The first one, these machines are very big and expensive, but most importantly, they're not very versatile. So what happens is, you use these machines for very specific projects where you have a very specific task to accomplish. So for example, if you want to install a pipe, you use one system. If you want to replace a pipe, you use a different system. If the soil conditions between the two projects are different, then guess what? Buy a new machine. If the pipe diameter is different, most likely you will have to buy a new machine as well. So that's when my brother, who has worked 6 years in the industry, 4 years as a sales and technical representative of the most important brands in Transys Technologies, and 2 years as a contractor, and myself, MBA student here in MIT, decided to put our heads together and come up with a solution that would allow us to cost efficiently install pipes with a versatile machine that could be used for more than one project. After a year of talking to customers and clients and people experiencing the field, we were able to design a new type of machine, which is a patent-pending technology that uses hydraulic force, pneumatic impacts, and an independent soil clearance system to horizontally introduce pipes underground without disrupting surface traffic and accomplishing about 30% savings, project savings, and executing similar works. Think of it as non-invasive surgery for streets and cities. We started over a year ago designing the solution. We tested the prototype in a real job site. We built a $30,000 MVP that was able to outperform a $70,000 machine that couldn't even finish the work. And that sparked the interest of two potential manufacturing partners that specialize in Transys technology, but not only that, and I think most importantly, two contractors from Latin America who wants to start using this machine. We should be delivering the first prototype in August 2018, and then so to sign a deal with a long-term deal of manufacturing, so that by November 2018, so that in 2019 we can start scaling sales. In Silper, we want to solve the water problem differently. We want to tackle the root cause of some of these issues, which is the high cost of piping infrastructure, so that developed countries stop wasting water and developing countries give the water to people who needs it. Thank you.
I'm not sorry I saw it in this presentation, but how much cheaper do you think this machine will be in terms of total project cost than the competition?
So in our estimate, based on the project we ran in Bogota, we were able to save 30% of the total cost. So what we did is we budget the expenses of a new machine and then compare. So he has been working in the field for many years, so he's used to do these valuations. So we ran a valuation we took a valuation that this client had, and we said, let me do it, and we executed the full work, and we got an extra 30% saving.
Oh,
you're operating in a highly acquisitive space, and there was a recent acquisition around $55 million. How big do you want this company to be? When you look 5, 10 years out, what's your vision for how big this can become?
My vision is that this is going to be a technology that will help the world solve the water issue. And that's in that case, our goal is not to sell right now. We're thinking more about growing it as much as we can so that we can have a real impact.
What percentage of the market do you think this machine can address?
So the market is divided in 4 or 5 different types of jobs. One is replacement. One is new installations, then you have detection, and you have repairs, and then consumables. So this one actually can execute installations and replacement of technologies. So it will give us a heads up in our good start against those two. And that would represent, to start with, because our technology, we will start in a very specific niche that is worth about $1 billion.
I guess I was asking, maybe this is getting too technical, but the picture shows the pipe going sort of
horizontally, yeah.
45 degrees, let's say, and yours shows it going horizontal. Does that difference change the amount of the market you can hit?
You can set the slope that you want. So it depends on the
project. It doesn't have to be horizontal if you want to do it 45 degrees. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our 7th team is New Day.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Connor from New Day, where it is our mission to connect entry to mid-level workers with good jobs. So for about 5 years, I lived in Myanmar, Southeast Asia, where I serviced the mass market with small, affordable loans. And as an employer, I was often frustrated by how difficult it was to find, hire, and retain entry-level workers. And I was not alone. I talked to hundreds of other business owners and managers who suffered the same problem. Whereas on the other side of the equation, we were providing microloans to customers like Masu here, who moved to the urban center of Yangon in search of a blue-collar job. It took her over a month to find that job, which came without key benefits like overtime and transportation. So she was forced to leave after just 1 month and restart the recruitment process. Now, the job market in Southeast Asia and Myanmar in particular is as large and as promising as it is disorganized. You have incredible economic growth in the region, which is leading to large companies expanding and having large staff vacancies open at any one time. To compensate for this, you have millions, tens of millions of urban workers moving into these urban cities for work. This is leading to high unemployment as well as high turnover. So how do we build an efficient jobs marketplace? Now the key is actually in those 2 photos I showed you earlier, where both Sue and Aung have smartphones in their hands. In fact, Southeast Asia has the highest mobile internet usage in the world, and Myanmar stands alone with a smartphone penetration rate of over 84%, the vast majority of whom have active social media accounts. However, digital services for mass market jobs have not caught up to this trend. There's no easy way for Sue and Aung to connect for jobs. New Day is bridging this gap with a smartphone-centric, scalable mass market employment platform in which we're connecting 20 million job seekers in Myanmar with thousands of employers, times that by 10 to see the regional opportunity. Our jobs comprise 90% of the workforce, from base-level factory operators to entry professional services like sales and marketing staff. And what we found is that while our job seekers have smartphones, they don't download new apps. Apps either cost too much or they don't know how to. Instead, they're restricted to preloaded apps such as Facebook and chat platforms. So what we've done is we've integrated into these social media platforms with chatbots, in which we use AI to program automated conversations with our users. This has enabled transcendent leaps in terms of reach and engagement, as well as drastically lowering our costs. It's as simple as sending a message through our social media page, and our chatbot, Miss New Day, takes our job seekers through a 10-minute registration process, after which we use our matching algorithm to use their behavioral and demographic information to service up the best jobs that suit them. After they apply, we don't just let them figure out the rest of the process themselves, but key to the whole process from what we found is providing professional skills guidance along the way, such as interview preparation, interview follow-up, as well as onboarding assistance. For businesses, we offer an easy-to-use web app interface that enables them to post jobs, to shortlist verified candidates for interviews, and to successfully, effectively make hires. For a subscription fee, we're driving transformational value for our businesses too. We're significantly faster. We offer verified workers with lower risk of turnover, all at a much reduced price. We're a differentiated platform, both locally in Myanmar and internationally in the region. And since we've launched our platform in late 2017, we've experienced strong traction with over 30,000 users that we're connecting to over 900 jobs via about 50 weekly in-person interviews per week. And we've raised over $200,000 in funding to further refine our platform and scale. We're on pace to break even by the end of 2019. And within 5 years, we'll reach over 10 million users, and including moving into new regional markets such as Bangladesh and Indonesia. To do this, we have an awesome team, all based in Southeast Asia right now. Our senior management team has over 15 years experience in emerging market tech, and we're supported by fantastic advisors. Do me a favor now and think back to that job you got, that big break, that stepping stone that got you here today. This is what New Day wants to facilitate for people like Masu, because finding that right stepping stone is so critical in building a better life. A good job can change a life. Let's make today a new day for millions in Myanmar and soon hundreds of millions around the world. Thank you.
It seems that a large part of the appeal of the solution is that many of your users don't know how to download applications and are not readily close to laptops or desktop computers. Is there a fear that your client base just leapfrogs your solution altogether and at some point just becomes more educated around use of different technologies?
Yeah, I think definitely down the line. I think it's more of a 5 to 10 year potential issue rather than a very short-term issue. And so I think it's important for us to not just be bringing on so many clients and job seekers via the chatbot right now, but also make sure that we are positioned for our job seekers as they continue to get more digitally literate, for sure.
In the US market, this was in the early days, there was a lot of competition, Monster and Indeed and Dice and all these different companies. And Indeed and LinkedIn really emerged as the clear winners once they had enough market share and network power. Who else, as you start to show success, I assume other people will jump into this market. The barriers to entry don't seem as high as some of the technology transfer businesses that we might see here. Can you talk a little about the competition? Who are the brands that you'd be most afraid of getting into this market that sort of can accelerate their user growth due to the positions that they already have today? And then I think you mentioned a competitor too, so maybe talk a little bit about that competitor that just entered the market.
Yeah, for sure. So there's one competitor that just entered the market a few months ago, and it's called GrabJobs. And they've actually focused more on smartphone apps, which has drastically reduced their ability to scale their job seeker base in particular, which has greatly reduced the quality of service that they're able to provide for employers. Eventually, they could move into the chatbot space. And so from our standpoint, it's extremely important for us to make sure that we're growing quickly, so we're building up our brand as well as building up networking effects that can enable us to fend off any competitors that either have just entered the space or will enter in the future. And I see it as, with a GrabJobs moving in, it's actually a great validation of what we're working on right now. We do have a leg up on them, so we're going to need to make sure that we grow quickly and stay ahead of them.
Do they have a local presence today? Are they already? No, never mind. That's fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our 8th and final team is Luco.
Hi, I'm Leia, and I'm here to tell you how at LUCO we're putting blood testing in the hands of those who need it to improve quality of life and outcome, notably for cancer patients. This is my mother. She's unfortunately been diagnosed with cancer. The disease has brought down her white cell level, and it has been brought further down by her chemotherapy treatment. With a weakened immune system, we now have to think twice before hugging her, not to pass on a disease she wouldn't be able to fight. And she's not alone. Every year, in the US alone, 650,000 people receive chemotherapy. 1 out of 5 is hospitalized for an infection, and it costs $3 billion. We're in such a situation because currently, white cell level are measured only twice before each chemo cycle. In between, we know that white cell level falls down. We actually don't know how low, so how much at risk of an infection patients are. We met many experts, and they shared their need for timely monitoring. First, if they knew, they could prescribe antibiotics. They could act early and stop the infection before we need an hospitalization. Then, for patients to support well their treatment, they could reduce the time between chemocycles. They could increase the dosing, and that would improve efficacy. Timely information means higher ability to personalize medicine, and that leads to better outcome. We've developed a solution. PointCheck is the first device for patients to self-monitor their immune system. It's a very simple device. It's totally non-invasive. It can be self-administered at home by patients, and it's connected to the doctor's office. So what's our technology? We take pictures of white cell through the skin. We look at the end, just at the fingertips. There's a special place, just under the nail. Capillaries are so narrow that white cell actually can pass only one by one. This is a video of those capillaries. You can see the white gaps passing. These are the white cells that we count. And thanks to our AI algorithm, we can accurately detect if someone is at high risk of developing an infection. We offer a unique solution. The standard of care, blood draw and finger pricks, require blood. They also require to be done by a medical provider in a healthcare facility. With our innovation, patients can do the test themselves at home. It's much more convenient, and it's also much less costly for the patient and for the healthcare system. Our product is the result of 3 years of lab research, and 2018 is a very important year for us. We had our proof of principle. We recently won the Startup World Cup. We have an SBIR grant, and we have 5 hospitals agreeing to do clinical trials with us. We have 3 more years to commercialize, and we're going to focus this time on product development, on securing an FDA approval, and working closely with hospitals so we can have our first sales by the end of 2020. Our business model has been built hand in hand with Accountable Care Organization. They have an incentive to reduce costs because they have an envelope to spend for each patient. Our value proposition is to reduce by 50% the number of hospitalizations. For them, it's a $1.4 billion saving opportunity. Cancer Center will acquire the device and lend it to their patients. And we know that 75% of them are gathered in the 16 largest centers. So we plan to go to 1 center and then 16. And we ambition to support the 6 million people who receive therapy every year. We will offer diagnostic as a service. We designed an annual subscription for $1,600. It's just $4 a day, when, as a comparison, a glucometer is daily over $10. A device can be used by 2 patients every year, and it brings a value of over $2,000 per patient. We designed a roadmap, and our first big milestone is to have 200,000 users by the end of 2025. To do it, we're a committed team combining business, clinical, and scientific expertise. We're also supported by experts, funded by renowned institutions, and as of today, we have 11 letters of intent of hospitals wanting to work with us, and we will not stop. After blood cell level, we will do blood cell differential until total blood count. So we've been LUCO, and we really hope to have your support to bring blood testing to the hands of those who need it. Thank you.
So Strand Therapeutics was up here talking about immunotherapy and how do they help immunotherapy sort of get much more traction in the cancer treatment world. Do you see immunotherapy as something that would be an existential threat to your business in the long term?
I think that that may be the case. I think that we have a road to getting there. And I think that as we develop as a company, we're first moving into this market initially, but we have potential, as Leah mentioned, beyond that market in infectious diseases and moving towards doing a complete blood count non-invasively. So beyond that, I think there are many applications.
How transferable is the technology you've built today to those other applications and other use cases?
So our mean viable product is all about detecting what's called grade 4 neutropenia, which is the lowest and highest risk level of white blood cells. And as we develop the company, we're going to be looking towards getting more quantitative and being able to classify more towards a quantitative level instead of just being able to detect that lowest level. So the product will grow over time.
What are some of the risks remaining in the technology development?
So one of the biggest risks that we have, because we're at a stage now that we've proven the technology, and one of the biggest risks that we have is ensuring that the device can be functional and accurate in the hands of untrained users. So that's what we're focusing on. We've proven that we can automate the algorithm, and the steps that we're going to be taking now are in automating the device, ensuring we have good user interaction design, and that the device works well in the hands of untrained users.
Do you have any data from any of the ACOs yet that show reduction in, what was the word, hospitalizations, I guess?
Well, there is a study that shows that if you can identify grade 4 neutropenia and treat with prophylactic antibiotics at that point or growth stimulating factors, you can reduce hospitalizations by 50%.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for the pitches tonight. Let's give all the teams a round of applause. All right, judges, that was the listening part and the asking part. Now's the deliberating part. So I'd invite our judges to leave the room to deliberate and decide on the winner. All right, they're on their way. Now that you've also had a chance to hear from the teams, we have our judges deliberating. We'd like to hand over some of the power to you as well. So the power is really in your hands to decide who will win the $10,000 Audience Choice Awards. On the screens, you'll see a link. Please follow that link to vote and make your selection. Also on the screen, you have a second link for asking questions to Steve Conine, our keynote speaker. I'd invite Steve back on stage. We'll have a bit of a Q&A while our judges are deliberating. So please send in some good questions, and we'll pick his brain.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I get your questions on this trusty iPad, so keep them coming my way. So Steve, you've had 3 companies with the same co-founder. Yep. Co-founding teams are a bit like marriages. So who does what, and what has made this a long and happy partnership?
Right. So, oh, the mic's there. It goes. The link. Oh.
It's case sensitive. Link is not working.
Someone says it's case sensitive.
Okay.
Unix.
All right. Is it working now? Good. Excellent.
Hey,
Thank you. Oh, it's working.
So yeah, it's definitely like a marriage. You know, early on, I was the son of a stockbroker, and we thought I'd be the sales guy. And so in the first business, I was actually the sales guy, and Neeraj was the tech guy. And he still to this day ribs me that he taught me to program in Perl on Solaris. And within like a week, we'd switched roles. We very quickly sort of figured out that like, I'd be looking at the programming he was doing. I was like, I'd love to do that. And he was looking at the stuff I was doing, you know, sales and relationship building. He's like, oh, I'd love to do that. And so we switched roles very quickly, and we've stayed with those roles ever since. You know, I think, you know, what title you call yourself when you're a founder is kind of irrelevant. I mean, you know, CEO is a glorified way of saying he did data entry, and CTO is a glorified way of saying, like, I, you know, jockeyed Excel probably in the early years. But as our roles, you know, have evolved, we've you know, obviously taken on those titles and played those roles well. Having some diversity in the relationship has clearly helped us maintain the relationship. I think with any founding team, if you have people who are too similar, it oftentimes doesn't work out as well.
I want to kind of dig a bit deeper on that diversity point. You've talked about diversity of co-founders. You also said that you talk to 50 to 100 new employees every week. How do you build a diverse company and a diverse workforce?
Yeah, so you know, I think first off, you care. Like, you actually put the effort in, and you recognize that it is an important thing to do, that it drives value to a company. We're fortunate to be in an industry a lot of people find very interesting, and so we've been very, you know, thoughtful and work at it all the time in trying to hire, you know, very diverse team. It's interesting, you know, in the tech world, there's been a lot of sort of attention on this. We generally index better than most tech companies, but we still have pockets where we're not where we want to be. And it's something that, you know, we keep working at, and you know, as we grow, we're hopeful that we can make progress on it, you know, as we have. It's really neat to see actually what some of academia is doing as well. We were just at Cornell a couple weeks ago, and they were saying that it's something like approaching 50% of their incoming engineering classes are female. And they really feel like they've tipped the balance to where it's, you know, it's becoming, you know, it's becoming a very diverse kind of population. So it's really neat to see that happening from education all the way up through. I think it bodes well for future generation.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of kind of education environments, this is a very educated city. You've grown a company significantly, but you're still in Boston. We've seen companies kind of come and go or grow out of Boston. Why does Wayfair stay here?
Boston, I hate saying this because I don't want to encourage more competition, but it has an amazing pool of talent. This region punches way above its weight globally in terms of the talent and the people and the work ethic that's in this area. And, you know, frankly, as an e-commerce company, you don't see a lot of them in the Bay Area. And I think we've really benefited from being in a market where we can really take advantage of, you know, amazing talent that's hungry, that's ambitious, that's innovative, and you know, so we've stayed here, and you know, we feel like we really benefit from it.
Good.
It's great quality of life too. I literally biked over here this afternoon, so it's, you know, it's a small enough city that you can really enjoy, I think, a nice, you know, lifestyle as well.
All right, so e-commerce, the opposite of when we think of e-commerce as a business, there's a giant player there, Amazon. And all of the companies on stage talked about kind of having very large competitors in their space. How do you think about e-commerce in the era of Amazon?
So, I mean, I think we think a lot about what are you doing for the customer, and why is a customer going to care about you as opposed to anyone else who's offering something that's maybe similar to what you're offering. And so, you know, Amazon's been around since when we got this business started. They've certainly, you know, I would say, they sell a fair bit in the category, and certainly trying to go after us. We're lucky to be in a category that has a lot of complexity, and we've been able to really navigate creating an experience that our customers just love. And, you know, I would encourage, you know, anyone who's starting a business in a field where there's an incumbent, you know, this, like, entrepreneurism, you can always find edge cases or, you know, opportunity, I think, where the incumbent is not doing a great job servicing a particular category, and for whatever reason, it gets brands develop and approaches develop, and we've navigated that very nicely. I think created an experience that's exceptional for our customers.
So you've got a room of kind of aspiring entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial lovers. What's the key piece of the entrepreneurial mindset in your mind as someone who's started 3 companies?
You know, yeah, that's a. I would say we have done well by being just resourceful and believing in ourselves. You know, it's shocking what I see our teams today getting done, that, you know, you'd say like, oh, when we go after things that you'd look at and say, geez, that's really hard, or someone's written, you know, whole businesses around things. You can oftentimes, I think, figure out scrappy ways to do things. Maybe I'd put it this way. You can do most things 80% effectively if you believe in yourself. And that's usually good enough to get way, 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 way down the road. And then as you get, to where you need to get it to 100%, then you can reevaluate it, but at least you have much better clarity on what you should invest in at that point. Having great people and building a culture that works well, I think is critical too. The way I describe it real simply is you try to hire the best people you can, and you try to have a culture that lets them work to their full potential. If you haven't done either of those, you should do that.
So what was your, as an entrepreneur, and you've been doing this for a long time, and what's been your kind of worst day as an entrepreneur? What's been the biggest failure, the day you thought maybe Merrill Lynch or vegetable farming is where I
love
belong?
vegetable farming. I wouldn't mind ending up back there. And I think maybe that keeps you grounded. It's funny, worst days they're hard because in hindsight, they tend to be the days you learn the most on, where, something really goes wrong. It's funny, there's not a specific day I would say stands out. I mean, there have been days along the way where I can remember, Neeraj would be tearing into me about this or that. And, one of the things I think there's some really interesting TED Talks now about learning cultures. And I think if you're an entrepreneur starting a business, you should listen to some of them. They're very thoughtful. We sort of organically figured this out, working together, and then as we built a team, that if you can create a culture where people can give each other feedback and give each other thoughtful, whatever feedback, and it's hard to do. It's hard to give. It's hard to receive. But if you can do it and you can have a culture that does it, you can move much faster. You can innovate way faster. Probably the low points were when I was kind of learning that as a younger entrepreneur. And you get to the point where you're just like, he's got the fight reaction fired up in you, and you just want to throttle him. And I remember walking out and just having to take a walk around the Charles and cool off for a little while before I go back and be like, all right. The problem was he's usually I'm like, oh, you're right, or it's a good comment, but it's not something you want to hear. But as you get more mature, and I think on both sides, you learn how to deliver a message and you learn how to listen to the message. And you believe that someone is being thoughtful and caring about what you're doing. It's helped.
Okay, so that was your failures or frustrations and low points. We've seen a lot of entrepreneurial teams tonight. They have great ideas, great products. You've watched a lot of companies kind of come and go. What's the kind of great derailer of teams that have a great product or a great idea, but it just doesn't come together for them? What knocks them off?
Boy, that's an interesting question. I don't know if thematically I could think of one thing. I mean, it tends to be either you've picked an idea that there's really not a business there, and I think the failure there is, I think, businesses oftentimes wait to try selling further than they should. Now, the medical device, a lot of the businesses, or a few of them that are represented here, it's a different track. I think for a lot of businesses, though, I've seen entrepreneurs who leave Wayfair who want to go be entrepreneurs, and we're encouraging with them. I oftentimes meet with them one-on-one, try to give them mentoring advice. And they get too enamored with the technology or the software, and they sort of don't sell. And they don't go out and listen to customers and listen to what customers want, and then actually get people to give them money and buy the product from them. If you can do that, you can learn a lot. And if you can listen to that feedback, you can oftentimes find a thread of momentum. And as soon as you sort of have that, a lot of times that leads to opportunity. And it was interesting, that second company we started, we never got there. We never were able to really sell it, and never really got any kind of liftoff velocity. Versus in Wayfair, you could see that first few month growth chart. It's sort of very quickly, even when you're selling a couple dollars worth of stuff, someone's actually voting with their wallet, and that's a really strong indicator that you're onto something, and then you can turn that into something big.
When you were talking about the different companies you've started, one thing that struck me is how different they are. So, you're clearly an ideas person. How long do you spend kind of incubating an idea and tinkering with an idea until you've got it, and this is what I want to spend 26 hours a day working on?
Yeah, so I think, as a younger entrepreneur, I got hung up on that a lot. And, you get this idea that, you have to have something that's, copyrightable or patentable, or it's, something new. It's a new invention. If you look at all the businesses we've done, I mean, I ran a consulting business. That's a really old school business model. The second one was kind of probably the most innovative. It was in the mobile phone space. We thought you could create a mobile virtual network operator in the US, which would be an overlay network that would be catered to businesses. That ended up just being, the other
incumbents weren't excited about that, and it ended up being a bad idea. And then we run a retail business, which is an old-fashioned business. So I think, what I have found at this point is that you're better off picking something you're reasonably interested in, where you think there's opportunity, and just start moving ahead. And if you get momentum and you can get customers buying, you'll then see opportunity. And so there's a lot of entrepreneurial businesses I think end up that way. The question of like, well, what's your competition look like 5 years out? It's interesting intellectually, but like you're going to figure that out as you navigate through that over the period of time. And it's kind of how I think about it.
Okay. You talked about 5 years out, so now you are in a chair where you do need to be thinking 5 years out, not like the start of your company. Tell me about what kind of technologies excite you, where you see kind of the future of e-commerce going, you're at a place where the future kind of gets built here at MIT.
No, it's awesome. We have a number of people from MIT. We actually have a data science team today. It's probably about 80 people. I think we have probably 50 PhD people on the team. So in our space, there's some really cool stuff going on with big data, AI, machine learning. We have the basic, if you pull out your phone and go to the Wayfair website, and there's a little camera icon next to the search bar, you can click on that and take a photo of this chair we're sitting in, and it'll return products that we think are visually similar to it. It's kind of over the tipping point now where it actually is starting to work quite well, but there's a really cool experiences you can do around that. The way AI and data power our marketing and our pricing and all this stuff has been amazing, and we're in the early innings. We're doing a ton for virtual reality and augmented reality, and it's early innings there too. But today we do a huge majority of actually the photography we do on our site is completely digital rendered. So it's done like Pixar does it, right? It's in CAD programs, and we model out furniture. We actually have a really cool API. I think we have the largest 3D model of furniture, the 3D furniture model library in existence, and we open source it. We offer it to anyone who wants to look at this stuff. And you can do some really cool things with augmented reality. So now on your iPhone, your Android phone, you can actually see stuff in your space. You can visualize what products look like. I think that's going to have an impact. I mean, everything we're investing in technically, we try to look at it as like, what anxiety is this helping reduce in our customers? So people want to see what stuff looks like in their space. Does it fit? Does it look good? Does it go with my other products? AR and VR are super useful there. Can I find what I'm looking for? Well, the visual search thing helps there. We're doing a huge amount of things with transportation. It's really neat to hear the company present on Transportation Day. There's so much opportunity in transportation, particularly when you get off of FedEx and UPS. Larger parcel and truck freight it's still an old business. And the stuff we're working on there, I think, will be revolutionary in how customers think and shop with us. The tech there is not, there's a lot of kind of machine learning around just demand forecasting and planning, but.
Wow. So lots to build
There's
on.
a lot, yeah, no, it's crazy. It's, if you're interested in innovation, you should come talk to Wayfair's team if you haven't. We have a lot going on. The funny thing about e-commerce is the front ends, we do a lot to innovate on the front ends. The front ends look great. I always tell my team, the front ends are very easy for people to copy because you can see them. And, people fast follow what you're doing on the front ends. The secret sauce of e-commerce is in the back end. It's when you put up a promise that you tell a customer something's going to ship in 24 hours and it's going to get to them undamaged. It's hard to make that happen durably time and time and time again. And if you look at where we invest as a company, the systems that run the business it's really, a lot of the innovation takes place to make that happen.
I see our judges have come back. So
Excellent.
I will give you one last question.
Okay.
So if you had a piece of advice that you want people to kind of leave this talk with and these kind of future entrepreneurs to leave with, what is that advice?
It's probably work hard and enjoy what you do. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
look forward to hearing from the judges.
Yeah, that sounds like a great recipe. Thank you, Steve. Yep. Really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. All right, welcome back, judges. Do we have a decision? Yeah, okay, good. Perfect. We can keep going then. All right, before we get to the grand prize, we have a few additional prizes to award. The first of those is the Booz Allen Hamilton Analytics Prize. This is a $10,000 award that's given to the team whose business leverages analytics in an innovative and transformative way.
The team at Booz Allen Hamilton considered all of the 34 semifinalist teams, not just the 8 finalist teams, when they decided on this prize. So the winner of the prize might be someone that's a new introduction to you tonight. And to announce who the award goes to, I'll invite J.D. Hannick from Booz Allen Hamilton onto the stage. J.D.
Thank you very
Over to
much.
you.
Hi, I'm JD Hannick. I spearhead Booz Allen's Boston Innovation Hub. We engage the innovation community to assist our clients in some of their toughest challenges. One area that we assist our clients, like federal government organizations, nonprofits, and Fortune 500s, is in data analytics. So this $10,000 prize is to the MIT 100K submission that best leverages analytics as a core part of its business model. After reviewing each of the submissions, we identified a startup that leverages deep learning to identify cancerous colorectal lesions. So with that, congratulations to Iterative Scopes.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. A show like this and a year of 3 competitions is a lot of work. We make it seem effortless, but a lot of work has gone into it. So I'm going to invite the 2 leaders of the 100K back on stage, Sandy and Jake, to award the prizes.
Well, before we get to the final 2 prizes, we want to take a moment to recognize the incredible 100K organizing committee.
You met a bunch of these people in the beginning, in the video, but we really want to say and make sure it's known that they've worked tirelessly since about September to make this all happen, and they make it valuable for all of these people. It's not just the winners, and they do it all for free when they have a million other things to do.
Yes, their positive attitudes, work ethic, and ability to accomplish anything that comes their way is nothing short of inspiring. And we have been honored to work alongside them.
So please join us in giving them a huge round of applause.
And now for the Audience Choice Award, where you decided who would get the $10,000 check.
The winner is Zilper Trenchless. Congratulations, guys. Congrats.
Let's just pose for a
Yeah.
picture.
Quick picture. So before we announce the winner, we wanted to share a bit about Robert P. Goldberg, after whom this prize is named. He graduated from MIT in 1965 and then continued on to get his PhD from Harvard. And Robert and his wife Judy, who's here with us tonight, were married in 1969.
So Robert loved MIT, and entrepreneurship was part of his DNA. After founding his own company and taking BGS Systems public, Robert returned to MIT as a visiting scholar at the Sloan School. Here, he developed a course in entrepreneurship and mentored MIT students for the then 10K competition. Robert was a generous person who taught his family to give back to the community. So his children and Judy felt that the 100K competition was an appropriate and satisfying memorial gift to MIT. So we're very proud to honor his memory with this award.
And, And before we give this out, we just want to recognize something that the judges insisted we did, which is that this was a nearly impossible decision. These teams represent the best that MIT has to offer, and all of them showed up today. So please let's give all of our competitors one big round of applause. And with that, the Robert P. Goldberg Grand Prize winner is
Infinite Cooling.
With that, everybody, if you can't tell, that's the rest of the show. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Mark Shalifu, for being an incredible MC. And we'll see you all next year. Thank you very much.